you want to access higher levels of dimensions, the fifth dimension onward, and truly become a magnet for manifesting and creating in real time, astral travel, all of these things, then you're in the right place, because today I'm taking you into the fifth dimension so you can learn how to become a magnet for creating anything you desire. Let's go. Astral travel, magnetic manifesting, and moving into the fifth dimension. This is what we're talking about today. Hi, my name is Taverly. I'm a high priestess, a practicing witch, and the founder of the Moon Temple Mystery School. And it is my goal, my passion, to activate you to find these higher levels of vibration, to teach you how to take the high levels of vibration and actually change your human life in the 3D, because this is what we're here for. We are in this process of being human to experience the full spectrum of what's possible. And it's a really catchy word to talk about wanting to move into the fifth dimension. We hear this a lot. And I want to break it down for you. I want to make it simple, understandable, and tangible in terms of how do you think of these different dimensions or densities. And also, really, we're just talking about states of consciousness. Someone asked me recently to describe consciousness, to describe what it's like to be in an expansive state. And I started to answer this question by really looking at what is your awareness of time, space, reality, possibility, your ability to see beyond just the here and now in our body, because there's so much more. And when we get out of our thinking mind and we process our old beliefs, our conditioning, and we start to see and feel something so much bigger than ourselves, then you are starting to swirl into the idea that consciousness is a state. It's a state. It's a feeling. It's a process. It's an expansive awareness of way more, way more than just our flesh and blood. And manifesting, right? This is what so many of us desire to do. And I get this question a lot in Moon Temple Mystery School, or when people book one-on-one readings with me, is, I just want this. Tell me how to do more of this. And I'm like, yeah, well, I can give you a spell for that, and we could do that. I can give you the steps. I can give you all the elemental magic. I can give you everything you need to do that. But if you don't address your beliefs, your subconscious patterning, and even really just exploring what it's like to move outside of yourself and into different realms, it's more difficult. It's not impossible, it's more difficult. Or I'll even say it doesn't create long-term change. So surface level change, yes, easy. I call it emergency magic. Emergency magic versus creating a life with. So whatever it is that you desire, okay, emergency magic, spells, rituals, yes, or creating a continual flow of that particular state. So when we're talking about dimensions or densities, I'm going to use the word dimensions today, but really think of it as density. So when we talk about it, we're talking about layers upon layers, or circles with circles with circles. And I say that description because a lot of times people think, or there's a lot of teachers that talk about hopping out of the 3D into the 5D, whereas I see it as moving out of an inner small dense circle and expanding your circle, which means in order to get to these outer circles, you are still holding this inner circle. Meaning, in order to be in the fourth, fifth, and any higher level dimensions, we are still in the third dimension. Because if we're not in the third dimension, then we're not here on this planet. This life cycle has come to a conclusion. So we are always still going to be rooted in the 3D. And here's something really important, because if you're watching me on this channel and you follow me, you know we talk a lot about, time and space doesn't exist. Right? Time is an illusion. Time is a man-made thing for us to be organized and keep track of stuff. Time and space only exist in the 3D. When you start exploring other dimensions, this is where a lot of people, seers, psychics, readers, they're tapping into higher levels of consciousness, to bypass time and space, to see, to feel, to know something different about the future, the past, even the Akashic records. We are going into realms or states of consciousness in order to bypass time and space. I know you're like, wild, wait, what? I promise I'm going to explain it in more detail today. And I also want you to think of the 3D, the third dimension, is the place where we experience separation. We see ourselves as individuals, which we are individuals in this particular body, but we see ourselves as separate from nature, separate from all things, separate. We see ourselves as just like this blob in this time and space, and everything that's happening to us right now is all that matters. When you start bridging gaps between the 3D and the fifth dimension or higher levels, you start to realize that there aren't any layers of separation, that everything is connected. Everything is connected. And in the fifth dimension, you can think of the fifth dimension, somewhat even the fourth dimension, as a bridge, right, to higher realms, as a bridge, as a place to go somewhere else, which is why I keep saying it's important to know that you will always be rooted in the third dimension when you are interested, looking at, or traveling between the dimensions. And we also want to embody what we can learn from higher dimensions in the third dimension. We aren't just seeking higher levels of consciousness or higher levels of dimension just for fun's sake. I mean, yes, we are, some of us. Some of us are. To me, it's fun. But we do it to access wisdom, knowledge, and deep remembering of something so much more than our third dimensional life, to bring it back into the 3D. And that's why this is important. You know, the 3D is rigid in our third dimension, in our human lives. I mean, so much of what we know to be true has been conditioned into us, or we've been taught, or we've been put in boxes, or we have these rigid constructs of how we should live, why, what we should look like, what we should do, how do we define joy, how do we define success. If you even just think of from a patriarchal look at how we've been raised in our school systems to define success in terms of job, family, money, all of the things. That's rigid. That's a rigid definition of success. That is deeply rooted in the 3D. And that has also been deeply rooted in different systems between, church and corporate on how to keep the humans working in alignment with those in greater power and their desires of how they want humans to live that benefits them. The moment we start stepping out of that box and we reclaim sovereignty and we claim our own divinity, our own Christ within us, our own connection to the divine, God, goddess, universe, it doesn't matter to me what word you use. When we claim that we have access to that, then we've taken away the power of others being able to control us. We've taken away the power of others' ability to tell us that if you do this wrong, you're not right, you're not enough, you are going to hell, all of the things. And so traveling through the dimensions or traveling into higher states of consciousness gives you back the control of sovereignty, of choice, of pleasure, of joy, of defining success. And I know I'm saying things like, you're like, wow, that's a lot of layers to work through. And that might feel like, ooh, right? Like, ooh, that's a big change. That's a big, I like to say that's a big FU, right? That's a big FU to a lot of things that you've been taught. And knowing that you're here with me watching this tells me that you know that there is more, that you are in the right place and the right time, whether you are seeking information, whether you are studying different types of awakenings, whether you identify as a witch or not, makes no difference to me. We are waking up at a rapid pace. You hear words like, collective consciousness, which basically when you hear people say that, it just means the energy on this planet has become less dense. It's become a little lighter, allowing us to access these higher states of consciousness a little bit easier. That means everyone is feeling some type of, they might classify it as mystical experience or communication with spirits or crossing the veil easier. All of these things, same, different ways, same, but really ways to access higher levels of consciousness. And so I know that you've experienced this. And whether it's repeating numbers, whether it's small little synchronicities that are happening in your life, or whether it's this like deep guttural call in your belly to just go there because you know it's possible. You're like, I just want to go there. And if you're ready to do that, you definitely should check out the High Priest and the High Priestess path for 2024. We have a whole new configuration of how it's going to roll out. And this initiate path only opens once a year. So if you haven't checked it out, check it out. And if you're watching this past the closing of those doors, you should check out any of the offerings in the Moon Temple Mystery School, because I am committed to bringing you live, relevant teachings and classes that will help you along your journey to get where you want to go. All the links will be in the show notes. Okay, let's do a little journey into the dimensions or into the densities or into levels of consciousness. And I'm putting these in buckets for you so it's easy to understand, but know that there's a lot more detail. There are definitely a lot of different ways and processes to explain this, and I'm going to make it as simple as possible so you feel like in this short time we have together that you have enough knowledge to know, okay, now I know what it means to access these different dimensions and how to do it. So quickly, I want to talk about meditation rituals and ways that you can begin to experience other states of consciousness. And here's what I'm going to tell you. This is so important. Whether you're meditating, doing rituals, or sitting in stillness, or just doing breath work, when we want to access higher states of consciousness, we have to cut out the 3D noise, the third dimensional noise, phones, humans, sounds, things that distract us and keep us in this third dimension. I like to talk about it as you got to turn off all your technology. You have to be able to step away. And for some people, that's the hardest part of beginning meditation, is to actually step away from any outside influence so you can go so deeply inward that you can actually then access higher states of being. And there's also some controversial information on walking meditations, painting as a meditation. I'm a weightlifter. It is a type of meditation. All of these things, yes, true. They can regulate your nervous system. They can bring you into a state of oneness. They can help you find your center for sure. But I'm talking about deep levels of subconscious and dimensional work, which isn't going to be while you're moving. It's not going to be while you're doing something with your hands or walking, at least how I teach it. To me, meditation, saying I can't meditate, I have to walk, I have to move, I can't concentrate, I would say it's a practice. You have to continue to work on it and perfect it. Learning to sit in stillness and in silence is a process. For a lot of people, it might be jarring. But start with 5 minutes. 5 minutes of turning every single thing off and just sitting in silence, starting to pay attention to what you feel in your body, what's coming into your mind. And, the turning off the mind process of meditation is also a process. It takes spaciousness to allow your mind to run itself out. I like to say that free writing or journaling or even just spending time in your thinking chair, giving yourself thinking time to the word noodle, it's such a weird word. I was going to say to noodle on the things that you are processing now. So you can get that part out of the way. So there's nothing like sitting in your mental to-do list. So you're like emptying your mental to-do list so you can sit in stillness and in silence. Now, of course, lots of guided meditations are out there. In fact, part 2 of this video is going to be a guided meditation to experience different dimensions. You can use guided meditations, but all the same, removing the 3D influence is important. Okay, so glad we got that out of the way. All right, let's talk about first and second dimension, right? Low levels of consciousness, denser energy, but still vibrates. Think of it like rocks, non-being types of things. Lots of things have vibration to them that don't have any consciousness. And really rocks and stones and different items that come from the earth are the best ways to think of it. Now, I'm also going to give you a little visual description from a scientific perspective on how to think of dimension. So if you think of first dimension as just a dot, and you might write this down, just a dot on a piece of paper, first dimension. Right, means one. Second dimension, two dots and a line connecting them, right? Second dimension, two planes, 2 points. Third dimension means there are 3 points. So think of that like a triangle. Fourth dimension is when that triangle has a front and a back and the side. So if you were to actually turn it, you would see four dimensions. So think of it like a square that is stationary, a square or a cube that's stationary, that has these 4 angles, 4 points. Fifth dimension are all of these points that rotate and move. So it exists in space and time more than just a single plane, right? Second dimension is just a dot to a dot with a line on a piece of paper. Right? The higher dimensions you get, you start to see these, right? You know 3D. If you think of 3D effects, it's just taking something that exists on a single plane and making it live and making it exist in space more than just on a single plane. So think of first dimension as 1 plane, second dimension as 2 planes, third dimension as 3 planes, and so on. So first and second dimension, low level consciousness, still has a vibration, no consciousness, mean no sentience. Now, of course, third dimension, we all know this. This is human. This is the universe where time exists. This is where a veil appears between who we are now and what we can actually access. And it's tangible, right? In the third dimension, things are tangible. Everything is vibrating. My desk, this microphone, actually my computer is vibrating because it's working. The lights on my camera are vibrating, but everything is actually vibrating. Everything around you consists of energy. Although when we are like deeply rooted in the third dimension, we don't see that. That's what's the veil. We don't see that there are more things happening. It's like the internet signal that's carrying this to you right now. You can't see it, right? When you're deeply rooted in the third dimension, you forget that that even exists. When you start moving into the fourth dimension, you start feeling and knowing, oh, okay, there's an internet signal that's going between the device that I'm watching this on and the device that it's stored on in the cloud. And all these things are moving in this space between, like the space between the camera and myself. There's all this space. There's all these things happening in this space and right here and right here and everywhere. Oh my goodness. There's so much happening around us, right? You start stepping into understanding that a lot of things exist in this space outside of the third dimension. Fourth dimension is the beginning of the bridge, right? It's the beginning of the bridge to higher states. It's the place where you can start to feel shifts. It's where a lot of people go when they first learn to meditate or when they have a mystical experience or depending on what type of rituals, breath work, energy work that you do, you know the fourth dimension because it's a feeling. So the moment that when I'm doing one-on-one readings, I step into the fourth dimension prior. So I'm a little flowy. I'm still in my body. I'm still in the third dimension. I'm still aware that I'm sitting on a chair and I've got a desk that I can touch in front of me, but I can feel the shifts around me. It's where the veil starts to drop. Now, in the spring and fall, of course, we know that during those liminal spaces of the great wheel of time's turn, that's where we start to truly experience the lowering of the veil or even just the widening of that circle. Okay? Fifth dimension. It's all of this and a deep awareness that the third dimension is just one state. Fifth dimension is the state where you realize everything is connected. This is where we go where time and space doesn't exist, and we can go into the fifth dimension and truly be like a magnet to what we desire and bring it into our third dimension, because we realize the third dimension is just one state. It's one state of consciousness. And when you float into the fifth dimensions and higher, you start to feel how easily things move in this human world. It's also where we can go to access no time, no space. I do a really beautiful journey called the Beach of Time. And it's a place where I lead people to go and see the past and see what they might want to know about the future, and visit different, this might sound wild, but different versions of you in different lifetimes, because they're all existing at the same time. So no time and no space exists in the fifth dimension. And for some people, this is hard to maintain because our belief systems come in. Like our conditioning, go back to that box we've been put in on what it means to be successful, what joy and happiness means. People have defined it for you and put you in a motherfucking box. When you're in the fifth dimension, all of those things need to slowly fall away. So you might have experienced the fifth dimension and be like, why can't I go back in that place? Well, I'll tell you, that's where beliefs and subconscious patterning and even trauma stops us from truly experiencing those high levels of consciousness. And this is why shadow work is important, because it helps remove those barriers to higher levels of consciousness. Now, fifth dimension, that's the work that I do in high magic. That's the work I do during high magic immersions. This is how I activate others, is to take them into the fifth dimension. Now, I might use different words because some people are really called to carrying this avatar alongside me of a witch, right? Big spells, big magic to me happen when you know how to access that field of the fifth dimension, which is within us, which is consciousness, which is the creation place. And remember that being in the fifth dimension means you are also in the fourth dimension. You are also in the third dimension. You are also experiencing the first and second dimension all around you. So it's not stepping out of one dimension or one level of consciousness and going to another. It's expanding beyond. Think of those little circles upon circles upon circles. You're in all of those places then at once. Yeah. Sixth to the eighth dimension onward. I'm going to keep it light on that, but I do want you to know and think of it like when you're calling in deep goddess energy or archangels or sentient beings or ascended masters, anything that has these labels of beings that may most likely have not been human, but are energetic sources. And you might wonder, well, how can I call in, the goddess Hecate if like 500,000 other people are calling her in at the same time? It's because these higher levels of dimension, time and space don't exist. We can be in multiple places at once. I know, it sounds wild, right? It is possible. This is why, like archangels, they can be in multiple places at once, even within your field. So when you are tapping into and calling in higher level beings into the third dimension, you are actually tapping into higher levels of consciousness. Now, if you want to communicate with them, if you want to have a regular flow, it requires you to be willing to go into higher states of consciousness, because that's where they exist. They can come down and create change in the third dimension alongside you. I can feel the sun starting to really shine on my face. You can feel them coming into your vibrational plane in the third dimension, but you are actually calling them in from higher levels of consciousness. Fifth dimension, right? Ancestors, spirits, they're in that. They're like, I was human. Hey, I see you there still being human. I'm here. I'm vibrating at this place. I need you to turn your radio frequency to my vibrational state in order to communicate with me, which is why when you hear me talk about things like invite them in, do the practices, make space, make time, is because when I say meditation in order to access higher states of consciousness, I'm saying this so your spiritual gifts can be amplified. So your ability to go into these places and actually create and draw into your third dimension what you desire is easier. It's where you can go and commune with your ancestors and spirits. It is 100% possible. Anyone can do it. I feel like I continually live with one foot in multiple worlds at once because I do the work. It's not because I'm special. You're special. You can do it too. I do the work regularly, daily, weekly, monthly, to hold that space, to give myself space to still be very human in the third dimension. I like to be in the 3D because chocolate exists in the 3D. Different levels of bliss exist in higher levels of consciousness, but chocolate exists in the 3D. So I like that. I want that. So it's a process. It's a process. And so I hope this overview has helped you understand. And I'm not going to go sixth dimension onward. They're really interesting higher levels of consciousness. But I want you to work on where you want to go and slowly flex that muscle of higher levels of consciousness so you can start to experience what I define as true magic. It's the ability to create. And then, of course, add spells, add rituals, do air magic, do fire magic, do all those things, but do them from a place of higher levels of consciousness. Another way you've often heard me describe this is being able to be in an altered state or shifting energy or raising energy. This is all talking about the same thing, different words, same outcome, maybe different processes, same outcome. All right. Find me. Make sure you subscribe to this channel because I'm going to keep bringing a lot of this information to you because I love it. I know it's possible for you. And what's coming next is a part 2, and we're going to put a link somewhere on this screen to listen to the meditation, to experience different states of consciousness. And I invite you to do that meditation every single day for at least 21 days. It's going to be a short meditation. It's going to be about 10 minutes. Do it, like bookmark it, download it, save it, share it. Do it every day for 21 days. And you don't even need to do anything else. No spells, no rituals, no journaling. Just sit with no third dimension influence and just experience it. Listen to my voice. Experience it with your eyes closed. And I promise you're going to start to feel your way into these higher states of consciousness. And what happens is everything in your 3D begins to change. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for joining this path. Make sure you subscribe and follow me in all the places, and all the classes I mentioned are in the show notes. And I will be back soon. Thank you for joining us today. On any of your favorite listening apps, we would really appreciate a rating and review. And if you're looking for more information, make sure that you go to moontempleschool.com and you can find us there.